I'm Tom with Viral Solutions, and this is Alex Belville with Mirrorless Productions. And we've worked together on quite a few church shots and scenes and stories and things of that nature. So we're kind of going to go down that path. Now, kind of set this up a little bit. We're sitting here in late May of 2020. A lot of states are starting to open up. A lot of, Trump announced that, hey, churches are essential and they should be open for business. But a lot of people are still scared. A lot of churches are still scared. They all of a sudden had to get thrown into this live stream movement and things like that. But the fact of the matter remains is that video is a hot need, and churches are a business. And they need to be able to connect with their audience in a cinematic way, right?
Completely.
Now, we worked with Alex on a really special project of a church we work with in Oklahoma. And is it safe to say, Alex, that they aren't your run-of-the-mill church you've ever run into?
Not at all.
Okay.
In a good way.
Let's talk about that a little bit. This is a Messianic church. That means that you've got a little Jewish influence, you've got a little mix of the Christian believer, and those worlds come together in the whole history of the church and that type of thing. So I got a really special story to tell. Now, before we go down that path, you and Chelsea married, you have 3 children, and they go to school where?
At Valley Christian. So it's a private Christian school here in town in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
So you're a believer yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Practice it. Put your kids through school. The whole works, right? Okay. So we bring you this client that's Messianic, and they want to tell a story about their connection to Israel, but from more of a Jewish spin than a Christian spin, right?
Yep.
So tell me what you had to go through to understand that and to be able to produce that.
Completely. Love that you asked that because, working with them has just been amazing, but it was really hard in the beginning to tell their story because I felt like I had to take, more time than normal to tell that story. But, it was just really kind of understanding their beliefs, their messaging. Tom was really able, they've been a long-term client of Tom, so in Viral Solutions, so he was able to really set me up for success with that. But it really took meeting with Tom, 2-3 different times, working with Shannon from Viral Solutions, spending time on their website, watching their videos. It was really a mixture of all that before I could even feel like I could tell their story, from a honest standpoint.
Okay. So these churches out there are trying to get some videos done. We weren't able to go there and shoot on site. How did you overcome that?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite stories of how just we've been able to adapt and what we've worked on several projects, Tom and I, with them throughout the pandemic. But we've been able to use some of their existing footage that was shot, in previous years in Israel. But more importantly, we bought a lot of footage online. And I'll be honest, in the 8-9 years of creating videos, I have never bought footage to create video for a client.
Me either.
I have always personally shot it with my 2 hands and the camera.
All right.
So, it was us, finding those clips, the right clips that we needed online. You can really go through, Shutterstock or Pond 5, and that's what we did. And we purchased individual clips. So we had to research and know what is the story we're telling and what are the shots that are going to work for that. Because if we didn't choose that the right way, we would end up having to spend, more money and more time in purchasing and viewing that footage. So we did a good job, I think, at really understanding what we wanted to tell in that story and the clips that we needed.
So my point in bringing all of that up is you deep dive a lot into your customer, into your customer's customer, to tell their story and to show it right and to be authentic and make sure you're representing them correctly. Those are all important things to you.
Very.
And in a church, does it not kind of tend to raise the bar a little bit from the normal corporate video? The professionalism, getting the story right. Because in this particular client, when they first looked at the shots that were made, there were little tiny scenes that didn't represent them real well. And we work together to fix that. But that's normal for you, right?
Yes, completely. I mean, I think they've been maybe one of the most unique case of like how, like you said, they were not our normal corporate or business or brand, style, or they just weren't our typical client. And for me, though, I like a good challenge. So I kind of felt that challenge and that pressure to like learn it. So, we've made how many videos now? I think 4.
Something like that, yeah.
So yeah, I think it really was that first video or two of kind of working through, okay, are we telling their story the right way? Are we getting the right footage? And, it took me a little bit, I think, to get it down. But in the last 2 videos we've done, I felt really good about how we were able to create those.
So if you've got a pastor sitting out here watching us, and they might be in a state where either they're still quasi-lockdown in one of the phases, or let's face it, you might be open, but your flock may not want to come sit in the church and be exposed, right?
Yeah, or not as many maybe showing up.
So a lot of them are live streaming, right?
Yes.
So what special things do churches need to consider when they're live streaming? Lighting important?
Very.
Okay, why?
So really, like when you're doing a live setup, I think that's the big thing right now that churches can focus on is having a more, just authentic and elegant approach to their, live setup by having the right lights, by placing the camera in the right way, by let's say they're live streaming a sermon, right? And obviously everyone's, sermon and what that looks like is different. But my suggestion is to put that camera closer to the priest so we can see him from here on up and connect with him more. So I've seen a few where they had like a really wide shot. So you saw like the whole front of the church, like maybe they had the choir there or something. And I understand.
And he's off at a distance?
Yeah.
Small in the frame?
Yep, you can barely see him. And then, so sadly, because the camera is so far back there, that audio quality is not going to be good too.
All right.
And that's a huge one. So let's say I'm scrolling through Facebook and, Sunday morning and I should be hopping on there, right? Like, even though let's say I can't make it to church, but I really should still be tuning into the message, right? Well, if I stop and I see that, I click play, I can barely see. Let's be honest, a lot of people are watching on their phones too. So that's a big point to bring up.
Even smaller yet?
Yep. So it's like this big. I'm looking on my phone and then, okay, I can barely see my pastor or the priest. And then all of a sudden, the audio's not that great too. Sadly, even your every Sunday churchgoer may not stay, tuned in for that.
Okay.
So imagine if that shot and that camera was closer up, the priest was right there, pastor right in the forefront, okay? The quality is just great. I'm going to maybe even put that on my TV to play.
Right.
I'm going to be that much more excited. I'm going to connect with him just like, I was or closer to before.
So let's talk about going from live to making a about the church video. I presume you would maybe take one of his or hers great sermons, and then that's telling a story, and then try to work in pictures of the people in attendance in the pews or people out and about in normal life, and how that applies. How do you put all that together and get it done in 60 seconds to 2 minutes?
Yeah, so are you saying like an overall kind of like story of like, let's say how we've done one of the Kurt Landry ones?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, really, I think it's really unique how you could tell a story for a church because, I mean, there's a lot of different ways where you could tell, let's say, a piece of the church's story, about who they are. You could focus on, the head pastor or priest to tell some of his story and with the church, why he loves, giving back and speaking about the word. You could do it that way. But also what's really fun about, whatever religion you're in is there's just so many awesome biblical stories, right? What if we took some of those biblical stories and told them in a new age way?
Okay.
With people, there's just a lot of different ways you could do that for us to, as a viewer, interpret that story. To get that message across of, let's say, talking about, Apostle Paul and his, redemption story, right?
Yeah.
There's so many ways you could make a new age story of that and still reflect those main biblical beliefs of back then.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, so let's dive into a little bit here on talking about working with a church, creating a storyboard about them. One of the things I learned in working with you is you tend to piece this together differently than like what we're doing here. I mean, we're filming, we got audio going. You do those separately. Do you do it that way all the time?
Yeah.
No kidding. Can you tell the audience a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, just so like kind of like the process of piecing it together.
Yeah.
So for us, it's really like if I'm working, let's say, with a new church organization for the first time, I'm really going to want to spend that time with one of the key main people in the church and organization. Tell me more about your guys' organization. Tell me more about yourself. Why do you love doing what you do? Why do you love speaking? All these things. I really need to take that time to learn about that church and what is their specific story. So I can start to think about, okay, how can we tell that? And then really what I'll do is I'll write a script to music. So I'll take their story, I'll find, some elegant or nice piano music that might fit that story, and then I'll start writing out their story to the script. So I'm able to tell that story, from their point of view. The beauty is if I spent enough time with them and I looked into, their website and their social media presence and maybe even met with a few people, that go to the church, I would have such an awesome grasp of who they are that I would be able to write that script from their standpoint almost.
From a marketing standpoint, here's why I love working with Alex in churches, is because when he puts this together, so he's filming all kinds of shots. Sometimes has to buy footage to work that in, especially in our current environment.
Completely.
Then, even remotely, you can have somebody do a quality audio recording, but you want like 5 or 6 takes of that with different voice inflections or pauses, or just read it off, different paces too, right?
Yep.
And then as you piece this together and you end up with a final film, here's the real key of what I love about Alex's process from a marketing standpoint, is that I can come back to that video and I can reshape that into a different story using same images, maybe changing up the order, maybe shortening it or whatever, slicing the music and the audio back and forth. And you've taught us how, as a marketing company, that we really don't have to worry about how all of that's shot. Because when you put it together, you can reformat it.
Completely. I mean,
That's incredible.
I mean, I appreciate you saying all that too, but I think that's one of the most fun things. I mean, working with churches and working with Kurt Landry has been new to me, but I'm just really, my eyes are open about the different ways we can tell that story, because there are so many amazing stories and teachings and disciplines in God's word, and there's so many ways that we can interpret to tell those stories that it's endless. So for example, the past 2 videos that we've done, with Tom and Kurt Landry, is we've used, talent, just, one for each video. And we've shown a person just simply on a journey in elegant places, like outdoorsy parks. One kind of looked like Israel. Another one was a wild waterfall. And so we almost told this new age contemporary story of this person on a journey. I like to say, especially now, it hits the nail on the head more than ever, let's be honest. In this pandemic, we have all been on some journey. I mean, whether that's personal, whether that's in business.
We've all been examining our spiritual roots.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Completely. And so what we did in the last month and a half was we took that and we focused on using one person on a journey, of finding that word and that message. And we used a voiceover, one from Kurt Landry, to tell that story. And so the beauty of it was that messaging was coming from them. It was coming from an honest place. And we were able to fit that audio, Kurt Landry and the church's, messaging into the video with music. And we were able to do that how many miles away?
700-800, long ways.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what I've really loved is
You've never been there?
Never been there.
Never met them in person?
Never.
Video conference. Done it all online, right?
Yep.
We helped with the script, the story, the storyboard.
Yep. So yeah, I just, what he said, I got to make that clear. It's so cool to me is that they are a church organization in.
Now you would prefer to be there.
Yes, I would. Guys, they are in Oklahoma. Tom and I are in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and we've been able to make these videos for them during a pandemic, and that to me has just been an awesome experience, way we've been able to adapt.
It was a thrill. Really was.
And simply still tell their story, because that's what our goal was to do, was to tell their story. and then, help bring people in still,
Okay.
to their online presence.
Any tips out there for, let's go the other end of the scale?
Okay.
We've got a lot of churches who they might be struggling.
Yes.
They might be startups.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of advice do you have for them that they want to do this on their own? Okay, because quite frankly, that's their only option.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but they want quality. They want to get it out there. What are some things when you look through things? I mean, let's be honest. We see things that, wow, that was really well done, or, that could have been done a lot better, even if they were both done by an amateur.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's the budget and that's the reality. You got any pro tips?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just, again, there's so many ways that churches can be telling their story. And I think that, there's some that could be telling it more.
Okay.
And that's simply what I think they need to start doing, because we live in a time in 2020 when technology is, obviously at the best point it's ever been.
Yeah.
Our phones do 4K video. There's really nothing holding you back from, making videos and doing that. And from what I've seen, a lot of churches are very fortunate that they do have, they have audio equipment, they have video equipment, they have stuff for going live.
My microphone, my lights, I bought from Amazon.
So Tom is a great example. He is not, I am the video professional, yet I am here at Tom's office, and he has an awesome little semi-professional setup.
Mm-hmm.
It looks really good. He has a better live setup than what I have right now. I mean, serious, it's true. I got to be transparent in saying that. But that's what I'm getting at, is that it just really takes, Tom took a little bit of time to learn this equipment, to learn lighting. I didn't give him all that. I wish I would have gave him more. But he did this on his own, and that impresses me. And that's what churches, I think, need to be doing, is spending a little bit more time let's make sure that our live setups are really good. Let's take time to tell our story. There's a few other kind of points I want to bring in too, is that I think, Kurt Landry, I hope I can bring that up, is a really good example of, he has, Kurt Landry Ministries, House of David.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Landry has such an awesome personal brand, such a strong and big one.
600 and some thousand followers.
He has 600,000 followers on Facebook. Now, not, everyone has that big of a personal brand, but
Hasn't always been that way.
I think, pastors and priests should push to have a strong online presence, because a lot of times they are the ones out in the forefront, guiding the church community.
You and I were talking about that recently.
Yes.
When you had said, hey, I went to church and my guy wasn't in the pulpit, right? And that kind of bummed you.
Mm-hmm.
So the personal brand goes beyond that, whether this is a Lutheran or Baptist
Yes.
church or whatever.
Completely.
That really there is a personal brand involved in there. And video helps you make that connection and draw people into your facility.
Yes.
Okay.
And guys, I know that may sound kind of weird, like my pastor or priest and his personal brand.
Well, some churches that kind of goes against some of their beliefs and the way they feel about self-promotion, all right?
Yep.
But from a marketing standpoint, we know that if you had 1,000 new members 5 years ago, you got 6 left. That's the typical statistic in a church. You get that much turnover. And a lot of the time, it has to do with who's in the pulpit, okay?
Yep.
And where they're at in life.
Because who's in the pulpit, that's who you're going to connect with. That's the person that is in the forefront, that's, helping to bring people in. Obviously, he's not, the only one, and there's so many people part of a church organization doing work in the back end to bring in people, right? But that's just even from out of a personal standpoint. When I show up at church on Sunday, I am connecting with the music once that starts, but once I'm hearing the sermon, I'm connected with the pastor. If I'm friends with him, it's as simple as this. If I'm friends with him on Facebook and I get to see personal stuff about his family, I like that. I connect with him. I get to bring up something to him like, hey, I saw you doing this with your family the other day. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's all that is. It's that pastor, that priest being themselves, telling their story, being authentic, right? But when they're sharing that online, they're building their personal brand. They're letting that out online, not just in person, because the truth is all of us walking have a personal brand. Our personal brand is the way we talk, the way we walk, our personality. It's just all of that. We all have one. It's just whether we choose to acknowledge and look at it like that.
That's beautiful, Alex. Thanks for joining us today. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, have some questions, I know you've helped me with Hey, when I first started filming live, I was having trouble. This monitor would pick up light, right, and mess with my camera.
Yeah.
And he was so helpful in saying, well, do this, do that, do this differently. You know, just little place. I didn't have to change my equipment, nothing. He's helped me with a little bit of advice. How can they get a hold of you if they
Appreciate
want
that.
some free tips?
Yes, all of our social media is at Mirrorless Prod. I'll spell that out. It's MIRRORLESSPROD. Mirrorless Prod. Would love to hear from you and would love to have you follow us.
Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks, Alex, for being here.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Hope it helps.